He's the one they call Mr. Feel Good. He'll stay up with you all night. A bad breakup isn't for you. He will not be your Frankenstein. If you have problems, you just call Mr. Feel Good. You want to deal with a bad breakup, call Mr. Feel Good. If you think that you're ever feeling low, call Mr. Feel Good. He's the one they call Monster Feel Good. Your Monster was written and directed by Caroline Lindy, and it stars Melissa Barrera as Laura Franco, who's going through all kinds of shit. We see that at the beginning, we see that in the opening of this particular movie, and that's as spoiler-free as I'm going to keep it in case you have not seen the trailer for this movie. It got a bit of a marketing campaign. I've seen this trailer a few times, and Melissa Barrera on the marquee. Sign me the fuck up, because not only is she talented, she was one of the best parts of Abigail, a movie that was a bit messy. She was one of the best parts of Scream 5 or 5 Cream, and really one of the only good parts of Scream 6, that debacle. But I like Melissa Barrera, and it was bullshit what Spyglass Entertainment did to her when she stood up for people, just not wanting to see people get slaughtered. So Melissa Barrera is not on anyone's shit list, and nor should she. She's bright. She's absolutely beautiful. Fucking stunning, and she's very talented, and she proves she can sing in Your Monster. And I do want to say this is actually getting a wide release later this week. This was the Regal mystery movie, but Melissa Barrera basically is dealing with a recent hospital stay, a bad breakup, a friend that is kind of a fair weather friend, and she's all upset, just down the goddamn dumps, as anybody would be. And if you've seen the movie, you know why she is really, really down. And it was bullshit how this situation came to be. But there's also this backstory of this play that her ex-boyfriend wrote. Her ex-boyfriend, Jacob, by the way. Edmund Donovan, who actually does a pretty good job here when he's given a chance to flex his acting muscles. Hopefully just that one. And not, the one acting muscle that involves a little bit of the hastily insertion. More on that later. So, Jacob basically wrote a part for Laura, and after recovering from this hospital stay, Laura decides, hey, I want to find my voice, I want to get into this play, but some curveballs are thrown. Such as the fact that a monster is living in her mom's house. She's staying at her mom's house. The monster is played by Tommy Dewey. Tommy, can you hear me? Can you feel me, dear you? No, he also is the executive producer, and he is somebody that has ties to Laura's past and does help her find her voice, and it's a quirky rom-com horror movie that I will say mostly works. I had a pretty good time with it. I'm going to get more into the details of it when I get into spoilers, weaving that stuff in, but when the comedy hit, it really did hit. And Melissa Barrera and Tommy Dewey do actually have tremendous fucking chemistry. More often than not, their scenes absolutely hit. And there are other characters. There's Jackie, Megan Fahey, who was in The White Lotus, who I do have to say, I kind of wish they would have given her a little bit, more to do. But I mean, I get the whole point of her character. And there is Kayla Foster, who plays the friend Maisie, who they kind of tip their hand as to how certain things are going to play out. And it is meant to just be a funny, quirky rom-com with some horror elements. And it does lean more into the horror elements once we get to the final act. I only have a few issues. I think when the comedy doesn't hit, there are some problems. Like, I was like, ooh, okay, that line didn't land. Like, all right, there's like this one character who's like the stage manager that, I mean, he has a few funny lines, but then there are times where I think they mistake, constant quirkiness for being funny, when really only Melissa Barrera and Tommy Dewey were able to do the quirkiness and pull it off well, being the fact that she is a bright, beautiful woman. He is a hideous monster. It's kind of like if you took that Linda Hamilton Beauty and the Beast series. Yes, there was actually a series that Linda Hamilton was in called Beauty and the Beast. I remember that show. It was weird. It's like you took the theme of that, but also didn't stretch it out over multiple seasons. I don't know how many seasons that show got, but it seemed to go on forever. So, it does have some nice elements, and it does lean more into the horror later on and weaves that stuff in. And when it clicks, it really does click. And I do appreciate what they were trying to do. I do think there are some laugh out loud moments. I do think there are some cringing moments. And not cringing like, okay, that's a tough subject matter to deal with. Like, that really didn't work. But there are some serious moments in this, and sure, it does have some cliches about it. The fact that it feels a little stretched out in parts and also seems to rush a few other parts and is fairly goddamn predictable, but it is fun. And that closing sequence actually is pretty goddamn good. So Melissa Barrera does a really good job here. I mostly enjoyed it. I'm not going to say it's a perfect movie, but when you get a chance to check it out at your local theater, give it a shot. I was certainly happy that I decided to go down to my local theater just a few miles from me and give it a shot, because you know what? I had a good time. I had a pretty good time. It's cute, it's quirky. The rom-com moments are even chipped away at my black heart, and some of the horror elements did work. I just wish they would have mixed those genres a little bit more, because it felt like they were almost at odds with each other. But Caroline Lindy did prove that she has the chops to become a filmmaker to watch out for in the next few years. So anyway, I'm going to get into spoilers. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So for those that have not seen, or those that have seen the trailer, basically, Melissa Barrera was dealing with some kind of cancer diagnosis. She has wounds on her stomach. So, I mean, ovarian possibly. I don't know. They didn't really go into that. But her boyfriend Jacob basically breaks up with her in the hospital because he just can't do this. She's going to need a caregiver, and he just can't do this. If you can't love somebody at their worst, I mean, if you broke up with them before this happened, okay. You don't do that when somebody's dealing with that. You be there for them. And then, if after they recover, if it doesn't work out, then okay. But you owe that, especially since they were together for a number of years. And they were writing a play together. And it was like called The House of Good Women or something to that effect. And it was kind of funny that given how he treated her and given how he treats a lot of the women on set, just how he's talking about, oh, it's about, women overcoming how they were, how they've been targeted and treated and stuff like that, and how society treats them. And it's like, well, look what you're fucking doing. Also, the best friend, Maisie, immediately says, and Kayla Foster, I think does a pretty good job here. They do kind of abandon quite a bit of her character for a while. But she says, I'm your ride or die. I'm here till the end. And then she's like, wait, I gotta go do something. It turns out that she's also part of this particular play. And Laura decides, she's going to really, really try to do this audition. She's going to do some good stuff. And meanwhile, during this, she's at her house trying to get over being upset. We get weaved in flashbacks and everything, and her watching classic movies. And then Tommy Dewey's monster shows up. And I do have to say Tommy Dewey does a pretty good job here. He has ties to her past, like she was like the monster living under he was the monster living under her bed. Don't know why I decided to flip those around. And we even see something a little bit later on where there was this boy that, is like the 7 minutes of heaven, I think is what they call it, in the closet, when young, it's like what they did in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, except with slightly less monstrous stuff. And he even scared like a boy. They kind of looked like Richie Rich. It was kind of funny. A boy that was like treating her badly. Because monster is her monster, hence your monster. So he does eventually, even though they are at odds, he's trying to scare her out of the house because he's been so used to having the house on his, to himself. And this is the mother's house, but somehow it's fully furnished and all that and everything. Apparently the mother's like super rich. They don't fully explain some of this stuff, so you just kind of have to fucking go with it. But the idea is, okay, they kind of bond over this classic movie. Oh, she can stay for 2 weeks, but then she's got to leave because he tries scaring her earlier. And that doesn't work because they end up with a connection, a literal connection at one point. And she auditions, she kind of fails the audition, but she gets put in the ensemble cast. And since Jacob is the director of this thing, the idea is he's going to, let her be part of the ensemble. And hey, Jackie is going to be the character that you were going to be. So so you need to shadow her, this kind of stuff, and help her along because she's really good. But, this part was made for you, so that way you could coach her on this. And the idea they're pushing this, that Jackie is only there because Jacob wants to or is sleeping with her. And Jacob is sleeping with somebody on the set. More on that in a bit. Meanwhile, Laura and Monster do eventually, have a, nice little connection thing. There's a Halloween party where she dresses up like Bride of Frankenstein, like from Young Frankenstein, which is actually kind of a nice nod. And Tommy Dewey does show up, obviously since he's a monster, he's in full makeup, so, whatever it is, what is. They have a nice dance. There's a point where he sees that, where she sees that it looks like Jacob rather is nailing Jackie. Well, it turns out he's not. But Monster scares him enough and drops him through like, one of those trapdoor sets, and he breaks his arm, and so like has all his arms on a goddamn sling. And it was like, he did that basically because he does care about her. It's like, no, you feel this way. You feel like, however you feel about him, it's not okay how he treats you. It's not okay. Like, he abandoned you when you needed him and this kind of stuff. And eventually they end up getting together and have a torrid night or whatever, kidding to sleep with Melissa Barrera. Who'd want to do that? But that's nice. That was a funny scene, and I don't want to say touching necessarily because that kind of sounds gross, but actually it was just kind of nice and sweet and ridiculous. But then as the play is coming along, there's a point where basically, he refers to him as like a limp dick, just like a limp dick, shithead or whatever, something like that. It's something to do with limp dick. There were a lot of funny lines in this, so just trying to do some of this from memory. But she basically finally just fully snaps at Jacob. There's this great scene where she just fully fucking snaps at him. And this is after her and Maisie had a bit of a falling out. Or this is actually right before her and Maisie have a bit of a falling out. She just snaps because of how Jacob's treating Jackie. And she thinks it's because he's, casting her to the side just like she got cast to the side. And just call him all this and finally started to unleash this stuff, just unleash this anger. What's nice is they tipped it off early, but Maisie and her have a bit of an argument. Maisie kind of storms off. Maisie and Jacob are sleeping together, just in case you didn't get these subtle hints where I was hitting you over the head practically with it. That's discovered a little bit later on. But then there's this thing where Laura stays a little bit later to talk to Jacob, because Jacob wanted to hash things out. They end up fucking, but basically it's just Jacob using her again. She feels guilty. She says to Monster, this happened. He's like, why? Why would you do this? Because he has, like, all this space in her closet and everything. This, like, deep part of her closet. And he doesn't love you like you deserve to be loved. And, I mean, and she finally does see this, but it's a little bit too late. It's actually almost frustrating. But they end up kind of having a bit of a break because she basically banishes him. She banishes Monster like she did when she was a kid. So then she, she's trying to apologize, trying to get Monster to come back, all this. She decides, after being fired from this play, because she was fired after Jacob fucked her and everything, because he had to get one final bit of control because he realized he was losing her. She finds out that it's him and Maisie together, so she's pretty goddamn pissed off. And then there's this she basically was talking to Jackie a little bit earlier. Jackie came up with this idea. Jacob's an asshole. Hey, wait a second. Why don't you play me instead? You come on, you do this, because I'm not cut out for this play. I mean, I personally wouldn't give a prime part away like that if I was a theater kid, but I'm built different. But they had this funny moment where Laura suddenly shows up on stage. They do this completely different play that everybody seems to be okay with. And maybe all this is just in Laura's head, because Maisie's also there and everybody's doing dance numbers and stuff like that, so it's a little bit weird. But during the intermission, Jacob gets in her face and just all upset. She broke this like giant ruler. She hit me with that ruler. That's another story for another day. But he's like, oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And she's like, I'll rip your throat out, because that was a line that Monster said. And then suddenly we, have the curtains open, intermission's done. And then she starts doing the singing number. And then it pans down and there's blood on her collar and all this and everything, and blood on her face. What the hell happened? Turns out Monster came back, and because he loved her, but also because she loved him, slashed his throat. So his throat's all torn out, and then we pan over and we see that Jacob is laying right there, just all splattered out. And she does this great dance number. It's great. Melissa Barrera actually can sing. I didn't know she actually could sing, but good for her. But just a hilarious moment. We see the flashbacks where the monster does this, and oh, everything's good, and you know, it's like, I couldn't leave you. I'm your monster. And there we go. She finishes the song, and then we smash cut to credits because everybody's all horrified. Like, what's going on? I don't know if this is part of the play, but I like it. But oh shit, he's really dead. Yeah, I mean, it's got pacing issues. It's got a few lines that land badly, and I think they could have mixed more horror elements in before they got to the last act. But you know what? B+. It was entertaining, plus Melissa Barrera. Who wouldn't want to see her on the big screen for 98 minutes? So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.